What Really Happened with your host, Mike Rivero. The history the government hopes you never learn. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
And aloha, America. Welcome to our show. It is Friday, May 31st, 2019, end of the week, end of the month. And thank goodness it's Friday. Thank goodness it's Friday. It's been a long, rough week here. So we've got a lot to talk about today. The phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. And of course, this being Friday, the lovely Lady Claire will be joining us in hour number 3 with her unique perspective on the world. So let's just get right on into it. Turning to the war zones here, apparently the ceasefire talks with Turkey basically collapsed. And following that, 5 Russian fighter jets began launching airstrikes over the Idlib governorate. So apparently, Turkey demanded that the Syrian Arab army withdraw from all the areas they captured in northwestern Hama. The Syrian Arab army said, no, we're not going to give those up here. And so the fighting is now back on over there in Syria. Okay, let's just do this. Alrighty, apparently, the world's most wanted man, ISIS leader Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, has been on several occasions reported to have been killed or seriously wounded, and then he always pops up alive again and on the run. So the British Army's Special Air Service, the SAS, have been deployed to Iraq for a kill or capture mission to track down the location of the self-proclaimed Caliph Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi. And around 30 SAS and Special Boat Service troopers have teamed up with American Special Forces following Easter bombings on churches and hotels in Sri Lanka, which left 253 killed, including dozens of foreigners, out of concern that Western states could be targeted next. They are said to also be assisted by Iraq's Golden Division Special Forces. So there's a lot of people out there trying to hunt this Baghdadi down. And he has been reported killed on many previous occasions, and he always pops up again here. Saudi's King Salman calls on the Gulf states to confront Iran's criminal acts after the sabotage attacks on the oil tankers, while Tehran continues to reject the baseless accusations. And King Solomon's remarks come at the start of 2 back-to-back emergency summits in the holy city of Mecca, which drew near unanimous support for the Sunni kingdom from Gulf and Arab states, with the exception of Iraq. The summits came a day after hawkish U.S. National Security Advisor John Bolton said Iran was almost certainly behind this month's sabotage of 4 ships, including 2 Saudi oil tankers off the coast of the United Arab Emirates. Tehran, of course, is denying the charge and hit out at what it called baseless accusations made at the summit, saying that the Saudis had joined the U.S. and Israel in a hopeless effort to mobilize regional opinion. It also accused Saudi Arabia of sowing divisions in the region to Israel's advantage. Sounds pretty accurate to me here. Well, once again, the U.S. has its little sanction machine out there again and is warning that any country that buys oil from Iran after the expiration of the waivers will be hit with sanctions. You know, sanctions would be imposed even if a country had not met its previously negotiated purchase caps. And the Wall Street Journal reported earlier yesterday that countries like China and India, which were issued waivers in November to buy Iranian oil, could continue the purchases after May 2nd until they reach a negotiated cap. But for everybody else, there's going to be sanctions. You get a sanction, and you get a sanction, and you get a sanction. It's rather silly here. Now, John Bolton claims he's going to show evidence that Iran was behind the Gulf attacks on these 4 tankers. He's going to present it to the United Nations Security Council as early as next week. And it's going to be kind of interesting to see what that evidence is. I wonder if he's going to repeat Colin Powell's little glass vial full of talcum powder. But again, whatever there was of these limpet mines has been destroyed. So I don't know what evidence he thinks he's going to have there, but clearly Bolton wants Iran to get the blame for it, and Iran is, of course, denying they had anything to do with it. So maybe they're going to claim that it was Iran's proxies who did it, and maybe Iran doesn't know, but they're still Iran's proxies. Okay, we're going to grab ourselves a phone call here. Joe in Tennessee, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
So, Mike, they couldn't cough up $25 measly billion for Trump's border wall. So I think Trump pulled a brilliant jujitsu move against the Wall Street Chamber of Commerce Republicans and put a tariff on Mexican products, which is causing pain in the stock market, which of course hurts Wall Street. And of course it's going to, screaming from the companies that, in Mexico. And, these people are the same people that want to replace the native-born white population of the United States with third world illegal aliens. And I think this is the greatest stroke that Trump could have done. It's better than a wall. I mean, tell the Mexicans to shut the damn country down and stop letting these people cross our border. I've said for the last couple of years that they should fly these immigrants home at the expense of whatever country's sending them over here. So this is wonderful. And the incrementalism, how it goes up 5% and 10%, 15%. Yes. It's about time. I mean, and all these people that call in and were upset because Trump couldn't get the wall built. Well, Trump, you can't say Trump isn't trying to fight. He just can't do anything with the rhinos, the Wall Street and Chamber of Commerce Republicans, and the fanatical left wing who hate white people and hate American culture to begin with. So I think this is a brilliant move, and I hope the market melts down on this. I really do, because this same stock market that melts down because of this, they're really not loyal to the American worker or the American people or the American culture. They're corporatists, like I say, they're Chamber of Commerce rhinos and left-wingers who hate white people and hate American culture. So I think this is a brilliant move. I hope he raises tariffs another 15%, and in the end, he'll be able to say that Mexico, through the tariffs, paid for the border wall. I mean, this is just such a great thing that he really pulled a rabbit out of his hat on this one. And once again, it reinforces the idea that I understand people being angry at Trump because he wasn't successful in getting his border wall. Personally, I've always thought drones and mines, we don't really need a wall. It's kind of like the Great Wall of China. But at the same time, you can't say he hasn't done everything possible. He shut the government down for the wall. He's done a lot to try to get this wall, and this is a brilliant tactical move in the whole wall battle. I just can't say enough about how happy I am about it. It's been a great week as far as good things that are happening, as far as the deep state, and now as far as what I really like about this whole wall fight is the way not only is he sticking it to Mexico, but he's sticking it to the rhinos. He's sticking it to the Mitch McConnells. He's sticking it to the Chamber of Commerce Republicans. He's sticking it to the Wall Street Republicans. He's sticking it to the corporatist Democrats. He's sticking it to the left-wing radical cultural Marxists and anti-white racists. I mean, he's really sticking it to a lot of them, the media. And if you notice, they're really not covering it that hard because they know how popular of a move this is to the American people. A wonderful move on all counts. And it shows to me also that Trump isn't a phony on this issue, that he is seriously at war with these people. He's not, I think that Trump is for real. And this is a good example. This and his fight with the Department of Justice and the FBI show that Trump is really Trump. He's for real. It's not just a bunch of baloney.
Well, I'm in agreement. I think that this tariff measure against Mexico is a good idea because they should be involved in stopping the flood of migrants coming up from the south. As it is right now, they let them across Mexico's southern border. They put them on buses and trains, and they bus them to the northern border and send them right across. Well, that definitely has to stop. Now, whether it's a good idea or not depends on whether it actually starts to work. And it will take some weeks before we see if there's a reduction in the flow of migrants across Mexico. But definitely making in Mexico's own interest to stop this flood of migrants is definitely the way to go.
Well, and he's expanded it also to make it, I mean, they put out a statement, some White House spokesman, that the corporation is basically saying, you corporations that are screaming about these tariffs, why don't you get your friends in Mexico to put an end to these illegal aliens coming across our border? Why don't you help us? And it was a great, stop whining about, how Trump is screwing you, and realize the people that are screwing you is the Mexican government and the government of these countries that are allowing our country to be invaded.
Yes.
So these, it was a great, you'd never see Bush say that, smack the corporations in America like that. I mean, that was something that only Trump and the Trump administration would ever do. Obama would never do that. He welcomes these people to come in and rape and commit murders and steal our jobs.
And vote Democratic.
Our wages. Yeah, and vote Democrat, absolutely. So I just think that, I don't know. I hear a lot of people calling in and being both disappointed, and I just like once in a while to give the things that you should be happy about, and I think this is one of them. One quick mention is I was seeing that Judicial Watch is investigating. I forgot what it was, and when I read the story, I'm like, I couldn't finish it because I got mad because it's like Judicial Watch is doing all the work of the Department of Justice. They ought to just shut down the Department of Justice and the FBI and just call it Judicial Watch, because they're the only ones that are investigating Hillary. They're the only ones investigating the stonewalling and the crimes of this government. It's just amazing to me how in the tank the FBI and the DOJ were for these corrupt Democrats and these corrupt deep staters. And really, they ought to, like I said, they ought to just throw everybody out of the DOJ and bring the Judicial Watch crew in, and they should all just go away in shame. Well, I guess it's the 7th floor, I guess they call it. It's like upper administrators of the FBI. They all should just be cleaned out. If anybody has any affiliation with the FBI now, and really even the field, everybody says, oh, not the field agents. Well, I'm sorry. They should resign too. They should resign out of principle. It's just such a disgraceful organization. And this guy, Ray, if I was Trump, I'd tell Barr, the minute he refuses to hand over one document you request, send him to my office. And the minute he does come into his office, he should say, you're fired, just like from The Apprentice. Yes. Because, and that goes for Coates and that lady Haskell or whatever running the CIA. Haskell. If I was Trump, I'd be waiting to fire him. And all Barr's got to do is say, he refused to give me the documents I requested, sir, and boom, you're fired. And that would be it. And that's what he should do, as quick as he could. They ask for documents they don't want to give, just to get rid of them. These people, they really got to fire half of them. You don't this has got to happen, and it's got to start happening fast. I mean, I can't stress it enough.
I absolutely agree.
Yep. But this Mexico thing, it's a jujitsu move. It was prime. It was a perfect move. All the bad people are taking a hit on this one. Like I said, the people that I consider the enemies of the country, the enemies of populism, the enemies of nationalism, the enemies of white people, they're all getting hit on this. All these bastard corporate people. I used to, I consider myself sort of a Republican. But I dislike these Chamber of Commerce Republicans as much as I dislike any lefty cultural Marxist. I mean, they really are just bastards. They don't care about their fellow man. They just want money, and they'd sell out this country in a minute. So this tariff deal is brilliant, and I was actually cheering Wall Street as it went down, and I hope that it goes down on Monday, and anytime he raises the tariffs, because all he asked them for, all the populist people wanted was a simple wall. It would have cost them $25 billion. That's nothing in politics. But they couldn't give it to them, so let them pay. Let their stock portfolios get a nice shot. Let their companies go out of business if that's what it takes to wake them up. I mean, we are at war. We have to defend this country, and if they're going to lose some money and scream about it, too bad. Too bad. I'll be cheering it on.
All right. Well, listen, Joe, thanks an awful lot for the phone call. I'm in agreement with you on pretty much everything. I think that if it was put out for a competitive bid, that wall could be built for a lot less than $25 billion. I know politicians like to speak in terms of billions, but if you look at the wall Hungary built, nowhere near as expensive and just as effective. All right, we're going to do a shout out to our on-air affiliates who are just now rejoining our network, and we're going to go back to the phones to Jim in Illinois. Aloha, Jim. Thank you for waiting. What's on your mind?
Hello, Michael. First of all, Joe needs to put down that Trump Kool-Aid. He doesn't realize Trump is not really helping the average American by these tariffs. What these tariffs are going to do, it's not going to hurt the corporations that much. They're going to pass the prices onto the consumer, and prices are going to be much, much higher, especially in the summertime. Now, what Trump should have done, instead of sending troops over to the Middle East to support Israel, they should have been sent down to the border. That's what he should have done.
Well, that's another possible solution. I mean, I'm in favor of building the wall and just having it over and done with. But, every time we talk about a wall being built, the Democrats are screaming about it. They're screaming that we're racist because we don't want to let, foreigners into our country without any controls or restrictions. And I still want to think about, there was that bill passed, I think it was back in 1994. They funded the construction of 700 miles of border wall, and only 30 miles got built. And nobody ever looked into that to see where the money went and who called off the construction.
I would agree with that, but Michael, in the meantime, putting tariffs on Mexico, and I think they should have some responsibility as far as migrants or immigrants coming to America. But why hurt the average American consumer? I mean, is that really fair to us?
Well, it's not an ideal solution, but I don't know that I buy that many products from Mexico. But something has to be done. And if you can find a better solution, my ideal solution would be we start enforcing Title VIII. We start going out to all these people who are giving jobs to the illegal immigrants. And unfortunately, the problem is ICE is handing out work permits. Why are they doing that?
I don't know, Michael. And again, I agree with you. Title VIII should be the answer, but they don't want to enforce that. I read in the paper this morning, in Panama, there's 4,000 Colombians who are in Panama right now, and they're heading north toward the Mexican-American border. How are we going to stop that?
I don't know. Maybe napalm?
Well, don't get me started on that. Something has to be done. I'm not against the wall. And I'm not against the wall, but it seems like nobody really wants to do anything, Democrats or Republicans.
Mostly the Democrats. Well, the Democrats think all these new migrants are going to vote Democratic, and they have so far. And as far as the Republicans, they don't want to spend the money. And they're hoping that this influx of cheap labor will keep wages and salaries down. But the reality is we have literally 100 million Americans who have not been able to find a job for months, if not years. The unemployment numbers are a complete fiction. Anyway, listen, Jim, got to let you go. Got to take a break for commercials. Got more callers waiting on the line, and we'll be right back. Aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. And once again, the postal address to support Republic Broadcasting for check, money order, or if you prefer anonymity, cash, is Republic Broadcasting Network, 2251 Double Creek Drive, number 302, Round Rock, Texas, 78664. The phone number where you can make a credit or debit card donation or pledge to be a recurring subscriber, is 800-724-2719, extension 1 during business hours, extension 3 at all other times. And before we get back to the phones here, the gentleman who was in charge of that Build the Wall project down there in Texas just tweeted out that a Department of Homeland Security insider has revealed to them that migrants from the Democratic Republic of the Congo have made it to the United States with confirmed cases of Ebola. We knew it was only a matter of time. That's another reason to have that wall. By the way, the National Geographic this last week was running a mini-series called The Hot Zone, loosely based on the book by the same name. And I'm not going to give away the ending. And I understand they're going to marathon it tomorrow, all 6 episodes. So if you want to pick it up on then. But that is scary, scary stuff. All right, back to the phones here. James in North Carolina, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hello, Mike. That's really an ominous thing you just said about these people from the Congo infected with Ebola.
Yep. Well, apparently they've got about a dozen of them now in isolation.
Well, I wonder how many there are total, though. That's one thing. Just to follow up just a little bit on that one point, that you hardly ever hear anything mentioned about this, the genuine health hazard, the hazard of infectious disease. That I believe will ultimately prove to be one of the most disastrous effects of this.
It's been a big problem, this open border situation. Scabies, HIV, H1N1, one case of bubonic plague. It's a major public health crisis, but the health of the American people is apparently subordinate to the Democrats' political agenda.
Yeah. Well, let me just say a couple of things on this proposed Mexican tariff, and I'll be off after that. One thing I think we're going to see, if it does go into effect, that one of the biggest areas where we're going to feel the effects of it is automobiles. General Motors has almost as many assembly plants in Mexico as they do in the United States. I believe Ford only has 1 or 2, but General Motors just moved a huge number of plants to Mexico.
Yep.
Back over the last 20 years. So that is certainly one area where the effects will be felt. I'm thinking that I don't know if this will happen. I wouldn't be a bit surprised if it does. If they find if some of these people who are going to be affected by this tariff will find a judge somewhere who will make a ruling against it. On what basis, I have no idea. But if they do, if an injunction is ruled against it, I would fully expect to see Trump cave again, like he has so many times in the past, and not fight it. Owing to that, and the maddening timidity of the Republicans to fight against anything, it'll probably stand up. So we'll just have to see.
Well, I've got an email here from one of the listeners basically saying that, they're on Social Security, fixed income, and at least where they live, most of the fruit and vegetables at the supermarket come from Mexico, especially in the wintertime. So they're going to see a price hike there. It's not an ideal solution, I will grant you, but we can't just let things go on the way they have.
Well, if it does bring about the hoped for effects, I would say it will be worth it. But there's going to be people who will fight it. There's no doubt about that.
Yes.
Okay, well, that's about all I had to say on that point.
All right, James, thanks an awful lot, and we're going to let you go here. We're coming up on a commercial break, and we'll be back after these words from our very kind sponsors who keep the lights on for us all. So stay tuned. We'll be right back. And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. We're going to go back to the phones to Tony in Puerto Rico. Aloha, Tony. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yeah, hi, Mike. There's a lot of things on my mind. There's a lot of things we could talk about: tariffs, border walls, et cetera, et cetera. But that's not the reason why I'm calling. I'm going to ask you a question, Mike, and I want you to answer it as though I'm Thomas Jefferson and not a 5-year-old. Okay, the best you can. Why was the separation of church and state so important to the founding fathers?
Well, because they remembered how the fight between the Catholics and the Protestants almost brought down the British government. And so they just decided the best way to guarantee religious freedom for all was to deny any one religion from having civil power, which is what the Catholics had in Great Britain. So that was the reason for that.
All right. Thank you, Mike.
All right. Thanks an awful lot. We're going to switch over to Matt in Ohio. Aloha, Matt. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi. Just two quick subjects I wanted to talk about. Yesterday you mentioned cystic fibrosis, and I wanted to know if you'd ever heard that cystic fibrosis and muscular dystrophy were caused by a selenium deficiency.
By a what deficiency?
The trace mineral selenium, not having enough of it in your diet.
I hadn't heard that.
Deficiency. Yeah, Dr. Wallach discovered many years ago that deficiency of selenium causes cystic fibrosis. And they ended the Jerry Lewis telethon when Jerry Lewis found out selenium would cure muscular dystrophy, and they didn't want him to let the world know about it. On a totally different subject.
Yeah.
Mueller and Trump are just actors playing the roles. Like professional wrestling, they fake being enemies, while in reality they are on the same team, just putting on a show while protecting the bankers, Israel, and those controlling them. Mueller, while head of the FBI, ended the investigation into Hillary Clinton for her uranium one deal bribery scam. He was rewarded with a second act going after Trump for the crime that Hillary and Obama did, colluding with Russia to give away American uranium to Russia. Meanwhile, the U.S. food supply is made toxic with GMOs, palm oil, fluoride, and chemicals, and the vaccines are being promoted as something that everyone should have when they're actually bioweapons.
Okay, well, calling them bioweapons may be a little bit over the top, but it's definitely true. There are a lot of very questionable chemicals and adjuvants in the vaccines that nobody can explain why they would be there or what their therapeutic benefit was going to be. So anything else, Matt?
No, that was it. Thanks so much.
All right, well, we're going to let you go here, and we're going to switch on over to Patrick in California. Aloha, Patrick. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Good afternoon, Mr. Rivero. Good afternoon, Mr. Rivero. Enjoying the show a lot, and I'd like to make a comment about your tariff comments about Donald Trump with his tariffs. Basically, it was already decided a long time ago this was going to happen. When we don't get our deal, a fair deal, a reasonable deal, then the tariffs was going to come in. So you should have known ahead of time for voting for Donald Trump that this was going to happen. And people have choices. It's not going to be that expensive. It's just going to be a little bit more. But in the long run, there are over 200 countries in the world, and we're going to deal with them individually. And this is going to happen to every one of those countries that ripped off America.
Well, you know, I challenge the concept that these countries ripped off America, as opposed to the fact that America's business leaders made some very poor decisions. Like, China didn't steal our jobs. American managers offshored them.
Yes, they did. Yes, they did.
So that's a decision that basically rests on America's business leaders, America's CEOs. They thought their profits would go up if they would send the jobs overseas, and to heck with the American worker. And didn't realize in the long run they were actually harming their own profitability, because if American workers are not able to trade their labor for decent wages and salaries, then they can't go into those shopping malls and buy things.
I see. But basically, I think you're a Democratic Party talking head, and obviously Bernie Sanders lost. We were not going to elect Bernie Sanders, okay? And that wasn't going to happen ever. It's not going to happen. This is a free market capitalist system, and the way we handle things, that's how we handle things, tariffs. So that's the way it's going to be. You're talking from a socialist mindset. That's not what we learn in business school. Let these people just take advantage of us like it's not a big deal. It is a big deal.
I agree it's a big deal. And I'm not a socialist. I'm an old-style capitalist. But I think modern capitalism has become quite fascistic and predatory, and needs to be sort of reined back in.
Okay, thank you for your call. Thank you for taking that call. Have a good day.
All right, same to you, and we're going to switch over to Dustin in New Jersey. Aloha, Dustin. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
That previous caller, totally wrong. Nobody ripped this country off, dude. Your own government outsourced your jobs. Now, if there was somebody there to take the job, that's the way it works. If you quit your job and somebody else gets hired in your place, that's it. The corporations went along with it. American people went along with it, but your government sold out. To say we're being ripped off by who? Who's ripping us off? We got the world's reserve currency, right?
Yes.
We got the petrodollar, right?
Yep.
We're manipulating. We got the SWIFT system. We manipulate the oil market. That's ripping people off. We manipulate the SWIFT system. So nobody's ripping us off, dude. You're an empire. You have 800 military bases around the world. You got 10 aircraft carriers. The only people ripping you off is your own government and some of these big corporations. That's who's ripping you off. Don't blame somebody else in another country for you thinking they're ripping you off. It's not their fault that this country's in bad shape. Who's not building their infrastructure? The Chinese are building their infrastructure for their people. They're building infrastructure for the African people. They're even building infrastructure for Serbia. How come your own government's not building its infrastructure here?
Because they're spending the money on bombs, bullets, and bandages.
Yeah, I mean, some of your listeners are just plain ignorant. They're like angry, and they want to blame everybody else in the world for our own. This is our own problem, dude. Like we're stuck in this situation in this country where we live, and our government's not listening to us. So our government is the one that is ripping us off. I mean, you can see what's going on around. Trump's going to put tariffs all around. Let me tell you what's going to happen. The world is delinking from us.
Yes. And
that's not good when we don't make anything. Okay, we make 12% manufacturing. That's it. If the rest of the world leaves us, if you want to put tariffs on every single country, they'll go trade with each other. You'll be left on the side. I mean, Malaysia and Serbia didn't they just ink a deal to use their own currencies backed by gold the other day? I believe. So
I know that Malaysia's talking about a Pan-Asian currency backed by gold, a common currency for them.
Yeah, I mean, there's things going on, but you just can't blanket say everybody's ripping us off. We're going to deal with them one at a time. That's asinine.
Yeah.
Okay? I mean, and that caller didn't even blame, you didn't even blame your own government who's ripping you off, dude. You're blaming everybody else. It's the Chinaman's fault. It's the Russians' fault. Everybody else's fault but our own. You know, I'm tired of that kind of attitude, Mike. It's like we're like royalty or we're exceptional. I'm not exceptional. You know, I'm just a regular person, and I know if I'm getting ripped off or not, and I don't think I'm getting ripped off. And by the way, I bet you that dude who called in, you're probably on a Chinese phone or on a Chinese-made computer, right? Or
yes.
have your Chinese-made video game system or your Chinese-made glasses. So nobody's ripping you. I mean, we don't make any of those things anymore, folks. We never will again, because once they're gone, the factories, they're not coming back. I hate to say it, but they're just not going to pack up and leave. So if you put tariff like Trump did on Mexico, that ain't like Jim from Illinois. He's right, Mike. It's not going to hurt. The money that Trump put on China for the tariffs, that hurt our farmers. He had to bail them out. That's not capitalism. That dude, to call him, we're a capitalist free market. No, we're not. If we're a capitalist and free market, you wouldn't have bailed out GM and AIG and the Wall Street and the banks. You're not capitalist, dude. You're fascist. You got a corporatism, it's called.
Yes.
So there is no more capitalism. It's gone. It's gone in Europe. It's gone here. It's just gone all. It's finished. There is no capitalism as we know it anymore. So that's all I got to say, Mike. It just aggravates me how people call in blaming somebody else for our own ills. You know. That's all I got to say, Mike. Have a good show.
All right, thanks an awful lot. Dustin, we're going to switch over to Nancy in California. Aloha, Nancy. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yes, I just watched a documentary series that I heard mentioned on Republic Broadcasting, and it's called Europa, The Last Battle. It's excellent. Have you seen it?
No.
Okay, so in that movie, they go through history, World War I, World War II, the real reasons behind these wars. And they talk about Mussolini and Hitler. And they said, from how I understood it, and let me back up here for a minute. How long has the word fascist been around?
Since ancient Rome.
And what did fascist, just because it was around that long, what did it mean then, and what does it mean now? Because we know words change and the meanings change as, you know, certain entities try to pervert our language and our meaning.
It means the absolute unquestioning authority of the state, and it's represented as a bundle of sticks bound together with an axe head poking out from one side. And you will see it on the... It used to be on the back of the dime, and it's still visible. There's two of them on the front of the House of Representatives.
Okay, so this is how I look at it, Mike. Michael, we've got an absolute control right now by the bankers. It's an oligarchy. Would you agree?
Yes.
And the oligarchies have so much money. What did... he was one of our presidents, and they tried to kill him, and the gun backfired. Andrew Jackson.
Andrew Jackson.
Andrew Jackson said, you give them this power to coin our money, and they'll buy the world. So who owns all these businesses and these corporations? To me, it's the same people, the oligarchy.
Yes.
So the oligarchy, So fascism, to me, and as I understood it from what I watched, was the government's answer to these oligarchs. It is the only way to wrestle control away from their absolute power and control of us and our country.
Well, that's what the founding fathers tried to do when they set up this country, and they set it up without a private central bank. They set it up with a government-issued currency that did not accrue interest. And that, along with no state religion, were some of the revolutionary aspects of our new government.
But these people are scheming, slimy, conniving liars and murderers. And how do you beat people like that when you have a system that is so unprotected? Because that system the system the founding fathers set up, They told us it's only for a moral and a religious people. So it's no longer adequate. And these people have usurped our country, and I believe it is only through fascism that we're going to get it back. They have admitted, Joel Stein admitted, yeah, we control the media, we control the money, we control your government. So what? As long as we can continue to control it. How do we get it away from them? It's only through, in my opinion, the power of the government.
Well, the government is, perfectly on board with the money people. They rely on the corporation to be their ministry of truth, if you will. I think the only way we're going to really be free of it is we're just going to have to wait for it to have a Soviet-style collapse, which I do still think is very much on the horizon. And at that point, the American people are going to have to stand up and say, we want to go back to the original Constitution, the first 13 amendments, and start from there. And definitely no private central bank ever again.
Do you think that they have left Russia alone? Or do you think that they've bought up most of it and then there was a collapse, but they still were left owning so much?
Well, after the Russian republics were formed, Putin basically kicked most of those oligarchs out. They're living back down in Israel now. And their central bank is still privately owned, but it's under government control so that it operates in the best interests of the Russian people and not for the benefit of the bank's owners.
Is that a definition? Is that fascism for the government to control that? No.
No.
So
fascism.
I really encourage.
Let me give you some examples of what fascism is in a very simplistic way. Okay. In capitalism, if you make money, you get to keep it. If you lose money, you're responsible for that loss, because freedom means the freedom to succeed and the freedom to fail and the responsibility to accept either outcome. In socialism, if you make money, it's taxed away to serve all of society. And if you lose money, society is taxed to cover the losses so you can pick up and start again. Under fascism, if you make money, you get to keep it. But if you lose money, society is taxed to cover the losses. And we're very much in a fascistic society when you look at things like TARP and quantitative easing and all these other situations by which the American taxpayer is forced to bail out Wall Street. Anyway, listen, Nancy, got to let you go here. Got other callers on the line. We'll be back after these few words. Aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. We're going to go back to the phones to Al in Canada. Aloha, Al. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi, Mike. Your last caller kind of just woke up. It sounds like getting in on this banking scheme that's been going on for a couple of 100 years now.
Yes.
So, that's it right there. I mean, boom, there's the problem. Right? And it doesn't matter what you do on the outside.
And the founding fathers tried to basically get away from that because they had seen the same scheme being used in England by the Bank of England. And when they set up the American colonies, they set up an economy that didn't work that same way, only to have King George III pass his Currency Act saying, yes, you will do all commerce with banknotes borrowed at interest from the Bank of England. And it plunged the colonies into the same poverty and squalor as England of the same time. That was a major driving force to the revolution.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's the root problem of practically everything that ails society. But, above all that, you're talking about tariffs and the fact that General Motors has a bunch of plants down in Mexico, and I think Ford has a couple. Your big three automakers were all bailed out, right?
Yes.
Ford, not so much. Just like in Canada, Ford wasn't really bailed out much, but it's just been exposed a few months ago that the Chrysler bailout that was given, by Canada to Chrysler, has been written off. It's been written off, Mike. That's a joke.
Yeah, they're not going to get that back. Well, I mean, right now, people can't afford to buy cars, and all of the auto manufacturers are in serious, serious trouble, not just Tesla.
Yeah, well, Tesla has big problems for a reason. Like Ford's market cap, I think, is in the $30 billion. So, they didn't receive much of a bailout, but GM, if I'm not mistaken, received like close to $50 billion.
Yes.
Or something like that. That's the market cap of GM.
Yes.
So we know what we're talking about here. Like, the taxpayer bought that company.
And then that company turned its back on the taxpayer and moved its factory to other countries. Frankly, given how much money we poured into those automakers, I think we ought to have an updated version of Reagan's cheese. You remember when there was this huge surplus of cheese, and Reagan just said, well, we're just going to send it all to the American people. And it was actually pretty good cheese, I have to admit. We should do the same thing with all these cars that are sitting on all these overflow lots all over the country. Since the American taxpayer basically bailed out all these automakers, let's take all these cars and give every American a brand new car.
Mike, I love the way you think. That's exactly what should happen.
Yes.
I mean, why didn't anybody think of that? But as far as these tariffs are concerned, so, what we just talked about here with GM and some other companies, and there's lots of them. Avoid those companies.
Okay, Al,
America
I'm going to have to
makes a
put
lot
you
of
on
really
hold.
good things.
Al, I'm going to have to put you on hold. We got to do a station identification break, and we'll be right back. And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show, hour number 2. The phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. I'm watching the Fox News feed. Apparently, they've had a levee fail in Arkansas. So the flooding is about to get a lot worse in that part of the country. And we were talking with Al in Canada about the various tariffs. And Al, can you just sort of pick up where you left off?
Yeah, sure, Mike. I was talking about the car companies.
Yes.
Getting a bailout from the taxpayer. Basically, the American people basically bought GM. Europe and Canada helped out a little bit and blah, 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 blah. But anyways, those are the companies to avoid. They turned around and they said thank you by moving their factories elsewhere. So it's not a bad thing that GM moved down to Mexico, and now Trump is going to slap some tariffs on. That's a good thing.
I would tend
Some
to
of
agree.
those jobs may come back. Yeah. And I mean, just because, like, let's just say, I don't know what brand it would be, but I'm sure in the United States somebody makes, men's underwear, right?
Yes.
I don't know who it would be, but anyway, like up here, it's Stanfield, and they're made in Nova Scotia, and I buy them. And I'm not going to brag or anything like that, but I'm telling you, they're way better than the Fruit of the Loom and the Hanes and the 400 Oak Street stuff and all that nonsense. So sometimes it's better to buy your own products.
Yes.
Not just because, you're trying to stimulate the economy, because they are better.
Yes.
The United States still makes some very good tools, drill bits, stuff like that, machining tools and all that. There's a lot of hope. And 12%, as the manufacturing compared to GDP is actually really good, considering when you figure the efficiencies. There aren't too many people just standing around.
When you talk about a tariff like 5% or 10%, that's not going to be at the price you pay. That's basically the price that the importer pays at the port of entry. And then there's transportation, fulfillment costs, supply chain costs, getting it into the store, all of which multiply to that final price tag. So a 10% increase in the tariff does not translate to a 10% increase in the price that you pay. It's actually going to be a lot less. So, you can take a deep breath and kind of sort of wind down a little bit.
Yeah. It's not the end of the world. Besides, I mean, maybe it'll, wake people up and start saying, hey, maybe we should consider buying some more things that are made in this country.
I would agree with that. I would agree with that. That's the only way we're going to get this country manufacturing again, is we're going to have to create a climate where people are going to look out there and say, yeah, the American people want to buy American. Let's start setting up some factories. And it's probably going to begin with small-scale manufacturing, clothing items, things like that. And then somebody will say, well, you know, these factories seem to be doing all right, so let's try some large-scale manufacturing. You know, let's get another car factory going here. And
yeah, that's how it starts.
It took a long time for the United States to become a manufacturing powerhouse. For that matter, it took China a long time to become a manufacturing powerhouse. It's not going to happen overnight. It took 30 years for us to give our manufacturing away. It's going to take at least 30 years for it to come back.
Yes, Mike. And on that note, I thank you very much for having me on your show, Mike. Thank you.
All right, thank you. We're going to switch over to Mark in North Carolina. Aloha, Mark. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, how you doing, Mike? Mike, China. A lot of people don't understand. 2008, they practically became our bankers. And it's not just a matter of the outsourcing of jobs and importing cheap Chinese goods, but it's also a fact that they own a lot of our debt. They put it in bonds. If they sell it now or do something, game, set, match, that's it. Trump doesn't know what kind of dynamite he's playing with what he's doing with them. And the other thing is, how are people going to trust the United States with our dollar and all that? And not, that's another big danger, that they're going to get rid of the dollar. I mean, it's not going to, if they're going to use something else for international currency but the dollar, because we're using it as a weapon, where every time we don't like what a country does, we put sanctions on them.
Yep.
Okay? Yep. That's not going to work. That's only going to work so long. It's not, and it's going to fail, because those sanctions are cruel. And now both Russia and China are strong enough that they can help these countries now, and so the sanctions wouldn't be as bad. Even Europe is starting to rebel on that. So that's it. The man is messing up by the numbers, Mike. He does. I really get the feeling he just doesn't know what he's doing. He probably listens to clowns like Bolton and Pompeo, and he listens to. By the way, did you notice his son-in-law there, Kushner, going to Bilderberg, or he's at Bilderberg already? Okay, that tells you something. Along with Pompeo, I'm also discussing with Alex Jones. I heard him earlier today, and I wanted to see what he wanted to say about Bilderberg on InfoWars, and he tried to make excuses for Kushner going. That if Trump thinks it's in the best interest, that maybe he just wants to see what's going on from the inside. But the fact of the matter is, Bilderberg is all secret. It's not like that what's the other thing that they go to where all the businesses, but it's that kind of out
Bohemian Grove.
No,
Bohemian Grove.
No, I'm talking about the one that's not really secret, that they
Council
go
on Foreign Relations.
No, that's not. It's well, it doesn't really matter. The fact of the matter is, Bilderberg is all secret, and by going there, you don't know what he's discussing. And as it is, that Kushner is probably responsible for bringing in Bolton and Pompeo in the first place, probably at the orders of Benjamin Netanyahu. So there's no way he can be trusted. I don't know what's happened to Alex Jones. I'll be honest with you, man. He's not the. I credit him more than anybody else for really red pilling me years ago, and now he's going against everything he ever stood for. And Bilderberg, I never even knew what Bilderberg was until Jones explained it, and then I found out about that other guy, Jim Guy Tucker, who used to go there all the time, and even Jesse Ventura when he had that conspiracy show. Would talk about. And now Jones is just saying it's fine and dandy. I'm going to see later on what are those guys' names? We Are Change. I want to see what they're going to say about this. Is they're at Bilderberg. They're watching. They're still monitoring.
Yeah.
Luke Blumkowski and the other guy, Jason Vermis. They're over there. I want to see what they're going to say anything about this. because Jones has really betrayed. He's betrayed his following. I don't know what he thinks he's doing. I don't know whether he's indebted to somebody or he's just a shill for Trump because he got such a big head when Trump actually went in the show and he actually talks to him sometimes on the phone. Maybe, I don't know, or whether he's been compromised because he's got AM and FM radio stations that might probably have corporate, even though he sells his own product. Probably his corporate.
Well, I mean, don't forget that Alex Jones went through that major deplatforming on social media, and so maybe he's trying to be a little bit more careful these days.
Yeah, but he started to change already even before that. He even said you guys didn't get along after that something about Zionism there.
Yeah.
And so going for a while, didn't used to be like that. Used to be, he was the one who, he'd talk about the dancing Israelis. He'd say Israel had their fingerprints all over 9/11. Now he doesn't even know all this information, by the way, that Ryan Dawson has, done an exhaustive job.
Yeah, Ryan's done a great job.
Yeah, about dancing Israelis and gotten FBI files on it. There's no question now that those guys were Israeli agents, that they were there an hour before the plane hit the building. They were all set up. Okay, so there's no question that foreign intelligence was involved, and mostly Israel and most likely Saudi Arabia. And Jones should be talking about that. Everybody should be talking about it. I don't expect mainstream media to be talking about it.
No, they'll never talk about it. They absolutely will not.
Is there any way you can get Ryan? Oh, by the way, Ryan Dawson. He mentioned you a couple of times.
Oh, well, that's good. I mean, we've known each other for a lot of years now. In fact, he actually came out here to Oahu, and we finally got to meet face to face.
All right. Hopefully he'll be back on your show. What about Ken O'Keefe? Any way you can get him back on?
All right, we'll try and get Ken O'Keefe. I do need to be more diligent about getting more guests on the show here, so it's not just me here. Anyway, Mark, thanks an awful lot for the phone call. We're going to let you go. We're going to do a shout-out to our on-air affiliates just now rejoining our network. Back to the phones to Mo in Florida. Aloha, Mo. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hello, Michael. I apologize if I've been gone for a little while, and I appreciate you on the battlefront every day, but I think it's very apropos with what you're talking about today. Have you talked about it? And if you have talked about this, I must have missed it, but Mel Gibson's new movie with the Rothschilds, have you discussed that yet?
I think I mentioned it about a week ago that it was coming on out, and that it was already being attacked as anti-Semitic, and they were attacking him because the character name in the movie is spelled Rothschild, whereas the Rothschilds that own all these private central banks is Rothschild. But despite this, everybody says, we know what you're talking about. You're talking about rich Jews. Now, apparently, the storyline of the movie is simply that there's a member of the family who was cut out of the family's will. And the storyline of the movie is how he schemes to basically get back in and recover his birthright. Now, that doesn't sound particularly anti-Semitic to me. But, Mel Gibson is not well liked in Washington, D.C., which is a shame because he's made some really good movies. And
the truth is the first casualty of war, right, Mike?
Yeah, absolutely. And, he could have put a different name on this, and nobody would have kicked up a fuss. Maybe this was deliberate on his part, because what you've got now is he's getting all this free publicity that otherwise he'd have to pay to advertise the movie. And instead, you've got everybody screaming, oh, it's horrible. And it's going to have the Band in Boston effect. People are going to, go see it just to see what all the fuss was about.
Well, I was raised Catholic. I got rid of that a long time ago. No offense to your Catholic listeners, but I'm non-religious like you. But I think that he never got over that arrest when he had a few beers and he spilled the truth. Sometimes alcohol can be a truth serum, which it usually is.
Yes.
And he told the Jews are responsible for all the wars, not the Jewish people, the Rothschilds, the Zionists, and he nailed it. He was exactly right, and he's still hanging on to that bone. And I got to give him credit for that. Even though he did back down, he even got the Pope to back down.
Well, what do they say in Vino Veritas?
I'm looking forward to the movie. You're all about movies, and you know how they're made, and this and that, whatever. But I think this. I hope this gets through. How Rothschild sent all his sons to the different countries.
We'll see. Of course, Claire and I have to wait for it to come out on cable. Because of Claire's back injury, we can't do movie theaters anymore.
Yeah, why don't you want to get eaten up by bugs? The movie theaters are filthy. I don't go anymore.
Yeah, they are.
That's a blessing, Michael. They're just, I don't know. But listen, I'm looking forward to the movie. God bless you, whoever God is. I think he's a good person or a good entity, whatever. But I think this is, this eventually, the truth does come out. And I think, at least I hope we live long enough to see it, but we may have to brace for impact,
It could very well be. It could very well be. Anyway, Mo, we're going to let you go here. The phone lines are now empty if you want to call on in. Getting on back to the international news here. Everyone's talking about war with Iran. Bolton is out there saying he's going to prove that Iran was behind the attack on those tankers and at the UN Security Council next week. And just rattling the sabers. They need to go back and look at history, because back in 1983, there was a clash between the United States and Iran, during which Iran succeeded in closing the Straits of Hormuz. And it caused a huge disruption. And back in 1983, Iran was still coming out of the Iranian Revolution. They were still very weak. They were disorganized. There were all these different factions fighting for power. And today, the experienced and veteran leader of the revolution, Ayea Khamenei, who played a role in the very similar critical situation in the 80s, is now facing President Donald Trump and an administration who don't seem to have learned much from history and the previous U.S.-Iran confrontation. As I've said before, this is not going to be easy. It's going to be a lot harder than Iraq was. And it's a serious situation that we're looking at. Okay, now then. Iran has just released a video showing one of their huge underground missile silos in the desert. And it's a rather impressive video where it basically shows that there's this underground missile bunker. It's packed with bombs. And the clip shows a missile being assembled onto a launching rack, if you will. It shows a long tunnel under the earth with all these weapons, trucks, and parts appearing to belong to the Qiyam-1 ballistic missile. Then they roll this down into this hangar with a hatch in the roof. The rocket is elevated into a vertical position and launched out through this hole in the roof. And from the outside, it looks like these are going to be very, very hard to spot. So I think Iran is trying to send a not very subtle warning that it's not going to be an easy war. It really won't. Okay, over in Israel, Netanyahu, of course, who was elected on the 9th of April, basically the Knesset has dissolved itself last night, actually Wednesday night, and some new members of the Knesset didn't even get to give their maiden speech. So it's a lunatic situation over there, but it's a desperate gamble for Netanyahu. They're going to have new elections on the 17th of September, and Netanyahu is hoping that he will be able to cling to power, that he'll be able to form a bloc that will give him control over the Knesset and make it impossible for his opposition to form a coalition that opposes him. But it is a desperate, desperate gamble. And if he loses, then of course he's going to wind up having to deal with those corruption charges. So we'll see what's going to happen with that. Now, Netanyahu is meeting with top U.S. officials, met with Jared Kushner yesterday, and Jason Greenblatt, who's Trump's Mideast envoy. And Kushner and Greenblatt are in Israel as part of a wider Middle East tour in the run-up to a planned U.S. meeting in Bahrain meant to lure investment to the Palestinian territories. We've got to take a break for commercials. We'll be right back. And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. We're just now getting word that over in Virginia Beach at a municipal building, there's an active shooter situation. It's in Building 2 of the Municipal Center. They think there was only one shooter who has already been taken into custody. Multiple gunshot victims, 2 rumored to be dead. That's not been officially confirmed. All right, so we're talking about the situation down in Israel here. Kushner and Greenblatt are trying to go through the Mideast, looking to try and lure investment to the Palestinian territories at the upcoming meeting in Bahrain. Both Russia and China are going to boycott. The problem is with the dissolution of the Knesset and the elections being put off till September 17th, this political chaos basically means that the deal of the century can't move forward. This political chaos is basically a body check to Jared Kushner's peace plan. In fact, this one article over Mondo is saying, effectively, it's dead and buried. They're saying by September, you know, Bibi doesn't want it anywhere near his campaign, and by September, it becomes an electoral liability for Trump. So, anyway, here's an article. This came out of Mideast Monitor, and it's saying that the BDS campaign against Eurovision was a success, and they're saying that it was a success because it built public awareness. They got a lot of media coverage, and you know, the headline acts didn't put out, but they did raise a massive amount of awareness of the plight of the Palestinian people. Okay, now Florida Governor Ron DeSantis went ahead and had his cabinet meeting, cabinet meeting in Jerusalem, and now he's being sued for it, because the lawsuit said the meeting violates the Florida state constitution and state open government laws, which require cabinet meetings be open and accessible to the public, and obviously most Floridians don't have the means to fly to Jerusalem. So Ron DeSantis is going to have to deal with that. Okay. Apparently, the Pentagon is going to ban U.S. companies from using Russian space launchers and satellites. And apparently, this will take effect in 2023. The rule will levy additional prohibitions with regard to acquisitions of certain foreign commercial satellite services, such as satellites and launch vehicles. So our cozy relationship with Roscosmos is coming to an end. And yeah, SpaceX looks like it's doing a good job. I mean, I know they blew up that Dragon capsule. Okay, article coming out of FortRuss.com. NATO's starting to come on out with their new military strategy, and a lot of details are still unknown. but the chances are the alliance is simply aligning itself with recent updates of U.S. doctrine and seeking to overcome all potential opponents. So NATO's becoming part of the U.S. Armed Forces is basically what this article is saying here. All right, citing a new security situation as well as challenges in the East and South and a nuclear threat from Russia, NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg announced last week that the alliance has adopted a new military strategy, the details of which have yet to be made public. And the surprising thing is not that NATO updated its military strategy, but that it took so long to do so. This came from Mikhail Kodorenikov, a retired Russian Air Space Forces colonel. Okay. Turning to our domestic politics, and this is interesting. We've been hearing that there's a lot of friction going on between Trump and Bolton. And President Trump and Bolton don't exactly see eye to eye. And that was on full display earlier this week when Trump said he was not looking for regime change in Iran. That's in sharp contrast to Bolton, who back in July 2017, before he even joined the administration, said the declared policy of the United States should be the overthrow of the mullahs regime in Tehran. So according to this article, apparently Trump is now talking to Sheldon Adelson about John Bolton, and I think we can surmise what's going on there. Sheldon Adelson's money was very important to Trump's 2016 campaign. It's going to be very important to his 2020 campaign. Sheldon Adelson was the person who demanded John Bolton be put into the administration, and Trump is looking for a way where he can get rid of John Bolton and still keep access to Sheldon Adelson's money. I wish him luck on that one here. All right, we got to take another break for commercials. We'll be right back after these few words. And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. Now, a former CIA officer and whistleblower, Kevin Shipp, says what is going on in Washington, D.C. with the treason against Trump is like anything we have ever faced as a nation. And he says this is an historic battle between the President of the United States and what I call the shadow government, which others call the deep state. He says that includes the CIA, the FBI, and the NSA. And Trump is the first president to stand up against the shadow government. That's not accurate. John F. Kennedy did. And they have been spying on Trump since he was a candidate, so this is huge. And nothing like this has ever occurred in any Western government. It may be premature to actually say that. We just may not know about it. But Schiff is definitely right. I mean, I certainly have never seen anything like this during my lifetime. It really is unprecedented. Over at Judicial Watch, Tom Fitton is out there saying that Mueller should testify before Congress and answer for the ethics issues. And I think one of the first questions they ought to be asking is why he accepted the job of special counsel investigating Donald Trump right after Donald Trump turned him down for director of the FBI. Obviously, there's going to be animus there and bias. Tom Fitton is also saying the deep state will target anyone they can over the anti-Trump coup. I think too many people are personally invested in this. They really, it's personal. Trump has caved on the wars. He's caved on the economy. He's doing marginal on the border wall. Caved on the vaccines, caved on cleaning up the elections. But they still hate him. They absolutely hate him. Okay, let's talk about the economic news. The federal debt limit expired last March 1st, and markets didn't move. Holders of the $22 trillion in national debt didn't utter a peep of worry that the U.S. government wouldn't pay its interest or redeem its bonds. The government is now taking temporary measures to pay its bills, delaying intragovernmental transfers and probably looking for coins in the couch cushions. But the U.S. loses its legal authority to pay out cash in fall of this year. We're going to have another shutdown. Now, not many nations can announce they legally can't pay all of their debts and yet avoid a wiggle in the credit risk of their bonds. Any other nation, Argentina or Italy, signals the government can't pay their debt, their interest rates would soar. When the limit is reached, the U.S. Treasury can't borrow anymore, which one would think would cause a crisis of confidence. But the risk premium on U.S. Treasuries really didn't budge much. And it was not a good day on the stock market. We didn't have our managers providing the usual traditional Friday happy ending for the stock market. The Dow was down 354, S&P 500 down 36, NASDAQ down 114. Okay, today Tesla said it was going to price its Chinese-made Model 3 starting at 28,000 yuan, which amounts to about 47,500. This price is 13% cheaper than the vehicle it currently imports, with Tesla looking to push sales in China's massive EV market. And the initial output of the company's factory in Shanghai is going to be limited to Model 3 vehicles. Pre-orders are set to start actually today. And the company's standard range plus Model 3 is 49,000 yuan cheaper than China's current cheapest version, despite the fact it remains unclear as to whether or not the vehicle will qualify for the Chinese electric vehicle subsidies here. Story coming out of Gold Core, basically saying gold has risen to a 2-week high and was higher in most currencies after Washington's threat of tariffs on Mexico exacerbated fears of a global trade war and a recession. So the metals are going up. Might be a good time, you know, if you've already bought it, might be a good time to sell, wait for it to go back down and buy in again here. A lot of concern over the fact that the Federal Reserve has seemingly lost control of its 10-year Treasury note. Rather than follow the Fed's quantitative easing and tightening, the 10-year Treasury note yield seems to be following trade patterns. Now, from that, I would infer there's a high degree of volatility in that people are buying and selling these 10-year notes, 10-year bonds. They're not hanging on to them. Do you remember freedom fries? Back when we were having this war of words with France, they said we can't call them French fries anymore, they're freedom fries. Well, amazingly enough, this is going to sound like a joke, but it isn't. The Trump administration wants to rebrand its energy exports as Freedom Gas. The U.S. Undersecretary of Energy, Mark Menezes, says that increasing export capacity from the Freeport liquefied natural gas terminal off the coast of Texas is critical to spreading Freedom Gas throughout the world. So, very bizarre. It's Freedom Gas. You're buying Freedom Gas from us here. China has now basically delivered a warning to Canada that they need to be aware of the consequences of aiding the United States in this case involving Huawei. And it's believed these have sparked the detentions of 2 Canadians who are in China. And Foreign Ministry spokesman Geng Shuang's comments came after U.S. Vice President Mike Pence and Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau called for the release of Michael Kovrig and Michael Spavor. Chinese authorities detained Spavor, a businessman and former diplomat Kovrig, on December 10th, shortly after Canada arrested China-based Huawei's chief financial officer Meng Wanzhou on a U.S. warrant. So it looks like that little tiff, that little kerfuffle is heating up yet again. All right, as we've already mentioned earlier in the show and with the various phone calls, the U.S. is going to impose 5% tariff on all Mexican imports starting June 10th, and duties of up to 25% will be added in the coming months if Mexico does not take action to reduce or eliminate the number of illegal aliens crossing into the U.S. This comes despite U.S. Trade Representative Robert Lighthizer sending a letter to congressional leaders to kickstart the process for approving updates to the North American Free Trade Agreement. Now, what's really interesting about these tariffs is they will get worse every week that Mexico does not lock that border down. And yes, people here in the United States who are buying products HECO in Mexico will pay a little bit of an uplift on them. But I think, yeah, it's time to make this Mexico's problem, because we've got too many people in this country who are just blocking every effort to secure our borders. And now we've got that very alarming story from the We Build the Wall people saying they've been told by the Department of Homeland Security that illegal immigrants from the Congo have been caught coming into the nation, and there are confirmed cases of Ebola. By the way, I think I mentioned this before, the National Geographic, yeah, I mentioned that before. Beto O'Rourke is still out there on the campaign trail. He wants to overhaul the asylum system and provide amnesty for 11 million immigrants. Meanwhile, out in Texas, Georgia Clark, Texas high school teacher, reported her undocumented students to Immigration Customs Enforcement, for which she was fired. So I think she's got a lawsuit there. I think she's definitely got a lawsuit. All right, we're going to take a phone call now. Tom in Florida, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yeah, Michael, like I told you yesterday about Trump's going to put tariffs. I think he should start out at 25% and go up to 50%. And within 6 months, if they don't stop this illegal invasion of our country. But Michael, the reason I called you, I talked to my brother today. And I don't know if you're familiar with California, but if you are, I remember back in my brother used to tell me back in the late 70s and early 80s that California was known as the state of milk and honey. Are you familiar with that?
Yeah, I remember that phrase.
Yeah, California was known as the land of milk and honey. It had actually the 14th largest economy in the world in those days, in the 80s, the early 80s. California was an unbelievable place. Costa Mesa, California was 85% white Anglo. Now it's down to like 40%. Orange County, California, you can look it up. Anaheim has got 10 cities all over by Disneyland. San Francisco has got needles in the poop control. And it was the land of Ronald Reagan. And now a guy like Reagan could never get elected in that state. Now, whoever's behind that, they should be arrested. Pelosi, Feinstein, all those scumbags should be arrested before they allow it to happen to that state. And the Republicans are to blame for that because they allowed that state to go 7, almost going on 8 million illegals in that state right now. Now, whoever's responsible for that, like I've been saying this for weeks to you, and Trump has got to do something where people are going to be physically locked up. If not, the country's going to fall right apart because it's happening in Arizona, Texas, Florida. It's unbelievable what's going on here. Now, these people should be going to Argentina or Bolivia. They don't need to be coming here, but why? They don't speak the language. They speak the language of South America. Why are they coming here, Michael? That's what my point is to you.
They're told that there's going to be all kinds of free stuff. That they're going to get up here, that there's going to be all kinds of free stuff.
Well, Michael, it breaks my heart, because I do, and I'm sure well, I know you do. I know people who need operations. I know people who have got cancer here in South Florida. They can't even get treated right. They're not even getting the right. My brother passed away in a VA hospital, Michael, in 2013. Okay?
Yeah.
And they were treating him like garbage in there. He was a Vietnam veteran. My oldest brother, he's still alive. He is a Vietnam veteran too. He was out in Arizona. He told me the place was being invaded. It's invaded.
Yep.
Nothing's being done. Trump, I guess, is trying to say now he's 5% terror. No, he should start out at 25% and increase up to 50%. Because this is an illegal incursion, sedation of our nation, invasion. And the Democrats are being, nothing's happening to them. Pelosi, she lives in a $12 million home. Did you know that, Michael?
Yes.
What is it? Mad Maxine Waters lives in a $5 million house. How did these people get this kind of money to live in these kind of homes?
It begs the imagination. I mean, when you consider what the actual pay scales are for members of Congress. Now, in Pelosi's case, of course, her husband is very wealthy.
Correct. But Donald Trump, we know he's a billionaire. He made some mistakes, whatever. But, well, he made his money. He earned his money. He's a builder. What did these women ever do except obstruct justice and aiding and colluding in an invasion of our country? Who should be held like the Oakland mayor. She never got arrested. Nothing ever happened to her. When she was tipping off the illegals that the ICE was coming to get them, the feds. That woman should have been put in jail the next day.
Yes, I agree.
And locked up for 20 years. Now, what's happening here, look at South Florida, Michael. There's not one white Anglo mayor on the Miami-Dade County Commission. Broward County only has 6 left. Or maybe 5 now. I can't even remember. It was in Sun Sentinel. And so, basically, this is an invasion of our country.
I agree.
It's an invasion of the country, and I don't see nothing being done about Trump's threatening to put tariffs on Mexico. And by the way, why aren't these illegals staying in Mexico? Why are they coming here? Like you say, they want the free Section 8 housing, food, all that. Look, we're having such a hard time with China. Build the factories in Central America. Put the car factories over there and all the other stuff. Building hats and all that, Nike shoes and all that. Put them right there in Central America. Forget China. It's unbelievable what's happening here.
Yeah, it is.
Jesse Smollett. I asked you this a couple of weeks ago, and I never got. We don't know what's going on. This Jesse Smollett case, Michael. That's the most unbelievable thing. What is the postal service doing to this guy? I mean, I don't know. The other charges have been dropped. What happened with him mailing the letter to himself? And isn't that a federal charge? And isn't that a severe penalty?
I don't think he's been charged in that one either. In fact, the last I heard is the police are starting to release the details of the case. It had been under seal, now it's been unsealed, and they're making it all public.
Yes, well, I was told. I know a guy who works for the postal police, and he told me after 30 days, if they have enough evidence to charge you, they usually charge you for that kind of crime. If they can, after the evidence is all clear and it's like a 30-day investigation and you found that you're doing something illegal against the Postal Service, that's a severe penalty. So,
well, what did Smollett do outside of mail a letter to himself?
Well, supposedly he had a substance in it.
Oh, okay.
And he was claiming there was a substance that somebody was trying to poison him or something. So that's what do you call that?
Yeah, that would definitely be a problem.
I mean, it was a hateful letter, supposedly, that he mailed to himself with some kind of chemical in the letter. So, I don't know.
Okay, well, I'd forgotten about the chemical, but yeah, that would definitely be an issue. All righty, well, anyway,
like
listen.
California's gone. California's gone in the Electoral College. So I don't want the Republicans allow that to happen. That was insane. The biggest state in the union for electoral votes, and you're going to let 7 million illegals go in there and take over the state and vote Democrat?
Yeah.
Free handouts? It's crazy. It's crazy. Texas is next, Michael. Get ready.
I believe it. I absolutely believe it. Anyway, Tom, got to let you go. Got to take a break for commercials. Got another caller waiting on the line, and we will be right back. And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here, and we're going to go back to the phones to Terry in California. Aloha, Terry. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Mike, the first point I want to make is people seem to forget that every employee of the federal government, including all the branches of the government, work for us. They work for you. You're paying them with your money. And somehow people have just resigned themselves to the fact that they're subordinate to the government. They got to put themselves below that. I know it's a little bit difficult to to, exercise your restraint over the people that work for us, but somehow we got to come together to get a handle on this thing. The second thing I wanted to ask was, remember those tents down in Tijuana that they wouldn't let people in? They were going to process them and send them back, and they were going to live in those tents until their court date came up. Whatever happened to those? I haven't heard anything about that recently.
There are simply more illegal migrants than there are tents or cabins, and they're just being given work permits and allowed on through. And it's a stupid policy. We should have the, if not the fence, and good gates, we should have the military on the border saying, you do not have a right to be here. You walked all this way to get up here. I understand that. You turn around and you start the walk back.
So they're letting everybody in that wants to come in, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Because that deal where they were taking those people to El Paso bus station and giving them tickets to somewhere and then just leaving them. And, they could, from there, they could do whatever they want. They didn't want to know what they were doing. All they have to do is drive another 5 miles down to the border and, say you're going through the border. You're going that way. That's where you came from. And the thing is, Trump doesn't talk about any of that. He's got to bear some of the responsibility of that going on, but he's not. And he's just not addressing it. And if they don't want you to know something, they just don't address it. Do you agree?
Yeah, I agree. We're hearing a lot of rhetoric, but nothing really is being done. I'm going to hold off a verdict on this tariff idea until I see if it actually results in a reduction of the migrants coming across the border. But I think, Mexico's going to grouse about it. And so are, obviously Wall Street took a hit from it today. But I don't think Mexico, they certainly don't want to keep all these people within their own country. They do have a well-defended border in the south, and they may just decide they're going to start enforcing that down there. Somebody's got to do something, though. We've created this tsunami of illegal immigrants that are just flooding into our country, and something has to be done to stop them and turn them around. Because, yeah, it's changing the demographics of our country. It's shifting. These people are being deliberately sent into districts that are just slightly Republican in order to turn them just slightly Democrat. That's what happened for the midterm elections out in California. Back when Reagan was governor, California was
I gotta go, Mike.
GOP stronghold. All right. We've got to let you go there. We've got to do a station identification. Back with the lovely Lady Claire after these few words. And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here, hour number 3. Phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. And for those of you watching on YouTube, this gorgeous creature sitting next to me is the lovely Lady Claire, who always likes to spend hour 3 on Friday.
Yes, I
with
do,
her
and thank
unique
you.
perspective of the world. So what's your first story?
My first story comes to us from antiwar.com. If you've not looked at it, they have a lot of really logical and intelligent things to say. And one of the headlines was that top U.S. general claims intel showed Iran mounting a campaign against U.S. And the chairman of the U.S. Joint Chiefs of Staff, Joe Dunford, has revealed that it was he who was driving recent U.S. military deployments into the Middle East, saying he recommended them on intelligence with respect to Iran. Also, apparently, Defense Secretary Shanahan had confirmed that Dunford told him of an anomaly in Iranian behavior. At the same time, Shanahan says that President Trump has made very clear he does not seek a war over the matter. And I've got something to say here. General Dunsford, Claire here, Aiea, Hawaii. A respectful word to you, sir, because I do know your track record and you have done some incredibly good things. But if you have utterly zero evidence through which you can prove your allegations to a war-weary and war skeptical countries, say that 3 times quickly, how do you think that you and your compatriots like Bolton and Pompeo are going to convince the people of this country that yes, another war is necessary, when the American people understand very clearly that they were lied into supporting wars against Afghanistan and Iraq? I mean,
Syria and Libya.
And you know, I would tell him that the optics of such a move are nearly impossible, because if he continues to make allegations for which he has utterly no proof, yes, I know the Israelis are pushing you in that direction, but, General, perhaps it should be the IDF fighting what they believe to be their battles, because they're constantly complaining and criticizing Iran as an existential threat.
Right now, you know, I mean, Israel's got nuclear weapons. They're an existential threat to every other country in the region.
I know. And by the way, speaking of Israel, the Israeli military said it attacked a Syrian anti-aircraft position after an Israeli warplane came under fire in Syria.
Syrian TV.
Yes, Syrian TV earlier stated that Israel had carried out a missile strike in Syria's Quneitra province. According to Sana'a, 1 officer was killed and 2 others were injured in the attack on a military site east of Khan Anabe in the Quneitra countryside. It added that the Syrian air defense attacked an unmanned aerial vehicle that entered into Syrian airspace since rather near the southern suburb. Now, IDF is claiming that their jet was making a routine flight in northern Israel that just somehow came under fire. The Syrian anti-aircraft missile missed the plane, and it was able to carry out its mission successfully. It looks like Israel is not going to let go of Syria.
No, it isn't.
Things appear to be escalating.
It's a way for them to confront Iran, and of course, they're getting ready to basically hold on to the Golan.
Yeah. And please remember, we do have military on the ground, boots on the ground in Syria. Now, here was something that I picked up from Zero Hedge, which again, if you get a chance to read it, I encourage you. Very straightforward, no-nonsense reporting. And apparently, the U.S. coalition has attacked a Syrian oil transport group of boats on the Euphrates River. Now, this is a huge development out of eastern Syria, where U.S.-backed Syrian Democratic Forces share tense front lines with pro-Assad forces on the other side. The American coalition has reportedly attacked at least 2 Syrian government boats that were transporting oil across the Euphrates River to the government side. Mike, is that an act of war?
Yeah, I think that would be classed as an act of war.
Yeah. And the news actually broke via the Beirut-based Middle East news site Al-Malitar, which is well known for often being the first to report Syrian news, given its rare sources in the Syrian military. And according to this, there were reports from Deir ez-Zor Governorate that the U.S. coalition and SDF both targeted the Syrian government's boats with heavy machine gun fire in front of Al-Shuaihil. Pro-SDF accounts later released photos showing smoke rising from one of the ferries that were targeted by machine gun fire.
So it wasn't a very successful attack.
No, it wasn't, and it seems to be ratcheting the tension in that part of the world.
It's ratcheting up all over. It really is. All right, we're going to do a shout out now to our on-air affiliates who are just now rejoining our network. And what is your next story?
The next story that I want to talk about is apparently
we talked about this one.
Oh, we did. Okay.
I'm afraid, yes.
And the talks with Turkey are collapsing. Now, this goes back to Elizabeth Warren, who is running for president. And I believe this also comes from Zero Hedge. And apparently, adapting an accent we've never heard before from this lady, she retreated to her talking points.
Elizabeth Warren.
Yeah, Elizabeth Warren. Namely, that she was told by my mama and my daddy that she was a genuine Indian. She then tried to segue, pandering to the audience over what she plans to do for the black community.
That is pretty
And
Pathetic.
now the host of the show was called Charlemagne the God. He wouldn't let it go. However, asking if Warren's fake Indian routine benefited her at all, to which Warren replied, Boston Globe never did a full investigation. It never affected nothing about my family. It never affected any job I got. Fake Native American adopts fake accent news at 11.
Yep.
Why is she doing this, Mike? It was a loser from the start.
It absolutely was a loser, and pandering to the black community with a phony accent.
Yeah.
I don't think she's gonna make it to the nomination.
No, she's not going to make it through the primaries. And this, I do not know this King Charlemagne, but I think he has a marvelous sense of humor. And on air, he called her kind of like the original Rachel Dolezal, referring to the former NAACP chapter president for Spokane, who instigated a public uproar when she was exposed for claiming to be an African American, even though she was actually from two European origin parents. I mean, Elizabeth, please knock this off and talk about what you're going to do for all of the American people. I'd like now to talk about Julian Assange. This is getting really scary.
Yes.
Assange can barely talk. He's been moved to the prison hospital of Belmarsh, which is for the British kind of like Guantanamo is for our, what do you want to call them? Unlawful combatants?
Yes.
Wasn't that what Bush called them?
Yes.
Apparently, Julian Assange has been moved to the hospital wing, and people have been very concerned about his pending health, concerning the hearing on his extradition to the U.S. And apparently, Assange's health has already significantly deteriorated during the nearly 7 years he spent in the Ecuadorian embassy in London, and has continued to get worse over the 7 weeks he has spent in Belmarsh, WikiLeaks said in a statement on Wednesday. Now, Mike, you know that there have been a lot of speculations that Assange may have been drugged.
Yes.
This cannot be yet proved, but there have been some reports to indicate that he was being heavily dosed on an anti-malarial drug, melifuquine hydrochloride, which is known to create delusional states for those who are forced to take it. And in fact, the FDA just upped its warnings on this drug about what it can do.
Yes.
And Mike, when it comes to geopolitics, forgive me, there are no real coincidences. And it appears that on the marching orders of their deep state American cousins, the Brits are ensuring that Assange will never have a chance to speak lucidly about how he got the information he did to pass it on to the American public.
Yeah, absolutely. There are definitely people who do not want Assange to have his day in court.
Oh, no.
And because then he's going to say, we got the files from the DNC computer on a flash drive from Seth Rich, not from the Russians.
Yes.
And just blow the lid off the entire cover-up. And so, I'll be very surprised if he makes it to trial alive.
I will be also, unfortunately. And those of you who might be kind of predetermined to behave in that way, if you feel like praying for him, here's a guy who could really use a lot of prayers right now. I want to go over to the government waste of billions with fragmented, overlapping, and duplicative processes. And apparently, the federal government wastes tens of billions of dollars on all sorts of these programs in areas ranging from healthcare to defense, the production of U.S. currency, and disaster response. It's a perpetual government-wide epidemic that has long fleeced the American taxpayers, according to a report issued this month by the nonpartisan investigative arm of Congress, the Government Accountability Office, GAO. The watchdog has published similar documents in the past 8 years, listing more than 300 areas of waste, yet the hemorrhaging continues because Congress or the executive branch and agencies have failed to act. And Mike, what this means to me is that if this government actually cared about we, the people, these problems would cease to exist. But at this point in the 21st century, the U.S. government is comprised of people with a complete and utter disdain for the American taxpayers and are only concerned about lining their own pockets as the main perk of having gotten elected or appointed.
Well, that's really what it's all about.
Yeah.
I mean, they've got a cushy little job. They've got a budget coming on through. They don't want, if you talk about getting rid of duplicate programs, it means somebody somewhere is going to lose their job.
Right.
And that's why there's no enthusiasm for that. But it is a huge amount of waste. I got to see it when I was at NASA.
Yeah.
I got to see it when I was working on some military stuff.
Right.
Anyway, we have a caller on the line, Tim in Florida. Aloha, Tim. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hello, Michael. I'm a very long time listener, first time. Please excuse my bad language, because this is not my native language. So
we understand. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So, I agree with everything you say, but I don't agree with everything you do.
Okay.
So in that article, the all wars are bankers' wars, open completely in my mind.
Okay.
And a lot of people in the world here in Europe, they don't know what's going on. A lot of things doesn't make sense for them. But if they would read this article, I'm sure they would, think different. Anyway, I think that the best chance we have here in America now, in maybe more than 100 years, is that Trump is the president. But he's alone. He cannot do it by himself. If I go back to that article and we saw how many presidents they killed over the last few 100 years, these whatever, Illuminati, whatever their name is, he has a lot of kids, Trump, okay? He cannot by himself. I'm sure he's blackmailed, he's, scared, whatever. He needs the help of the people because he's all by himself in this, okay? So I know there are three kind of people in the world. First is the people who make the things happening.
Right.
Second are the people who are watching how it's happening, like you are. And the third people are the people who don't care what's happening. Okay? So what I want to suggest you, Michael, is that maybe you can go the next level. I don't know, it's not enough what you do. I know you do a lot of work and everything, but you just show us the problems. You never talk about solutions. And I'm the kind of guy, when I find out that I have a problem, and I know I have a problem, I don't think at the problem anymore, just at the solution. Okay? So you can be the one who really makes a difference. If you can do something, like a few minutes per day, every show, with solutions, with ideas from people. In Europe, I'm from Romania originally, and I was in 1990 when Ceausescu fell. I was on the street for almost 3 weeks, day and night. And what I felt in those days, like a liberation, freedom, you cannot compare that to anything in the world, So, I don't know, maybe we can, you see in France, Italy, everywhere, there are people rising. In America, nobody's doing anything. With all the guns, with everything, freedom, nobody's doing anything. Not even a small party with followers. Nothing. Everybody's just talking and talking and talking. And a lot of independent media, they talk about problems. You could do something if we can find a solution. That's my point. That's why I called.
Okay, well, thank you for that. But, I do think that on a lot of these stories and articles, I do offer some solutions. And especially, we're looking about immigration. I've been talking about we got to get that wall built. And if that's not going to happen, we have to enforce Title VIII. So I do think I tend to be a little more solution-oriented than you give me credit for. So anyway, Tim,
Mike, yeah, just a second, please. You know, when I read that article, all wars are bankers' wars. Over there is the problem of all the problems with immigration, with everything. And over there lies the solution too. Those are the people who make everything bad, including immigration, everything. So if we fight with somebody else, it's not going to do anything, not a change, nothing. You can do a lot more. If we can find, we can, you know, united we stand, divided we fall. That's the problem. It's a war between the thieves. I don't call them elite. I call them thieves and honest people. We are divided. They are united. That's why they are winning. You know, so that's, you know, maybe you can do more. Maybe you can, you know, just try to talk to people. Maybe they come with solutions. You never know where somebody comes. Maybe we can unite somehow in some form or whatever. All your listeners, do something. I don't know. It's, you know, anyway. Yeah, okay. Thank you, Michael. Thank you for your time. Thank you.
All right. Thanks an awful lot. We're going to let you go.
Thank you.
And definitely the elites, the rich, the bankers, they work to keep us divided and at war with each other.
Absolutely.
Whether it's Antifa, Black Lives Matter, transgender nonsense. Yeah, they're working very hard to keep us basically at each other's throats. And now, of course, they're coming up here with the, they're reviving the abortion debate. Okay, so Claire, let's see, we already talked about this story.
Okay.
And let's see.
Oh, this is funny.
I didn't quite get to this one, but go for it.
Hillary Clinton to give keynote speech at Cybersecurity Summit. Yes, really.
Yeah, I
mean the irony here is so thick, you could cut it with a knife.
I mean, we're talking about the same Hillary Clinton who kept classified information on an unsecured private email server.
Yeah,
that Hillary Clinton.
Yeah, that same
and she's
lady.
The keynote speaker at a cybersecurity. Boy, is she desperate for attention.
I think so. I think so. And I think I'd like to take this into the next segment, if I may.
Yes, we have to take a break.
All right.
For commercials. And aloha, America. Welcome back to the show here. And I got to be straight with you, with all of our listeners here right now. Things are very tight for Republic Broadcasting Network. And as a matter of fact, I don't want to go into the details. We actually had a service outage on Wednesday because we literally ran out of money. And it underscores the fact this could all go away. And there's a lot of people who would love for all of this to go away because we're a real pain in the neck to the corporate media and to various politicians. So right now, the crunch is on. We really need your help. So the postal address to send a check, money order, or if you prefer anonymity cash, is Republic Broadcasting Network, 2251 Double Creek Drive, number 302, Round Rock, Texas, 78664. The phone number where you can make a credit or debit card donation or pledge to be a recurring subscriber is 800-724-2719, extension 1 during business hours, extension 3 at all other times. The network thanks you. We really do need it right now. And again, a heartfelt thanks to those who have already donated. Okay, we're going to go to the phones here and take a phone call from Catherine in Texas. Aloha, Catherine. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind? Catherine, are you there?
Oh.
Hello?
Hello?
Oh, there you are.
Yes.
Yes, hi. Sending love to you and Claire and healing thoughts, and look forward to you moving to the States so that you are able to go and speak to audiences and do more activism like the previous caller just stated.
Yes.
I'm going to say that you do actually wake people up. You do offer solutions. You even talk about the Soviet collapse, how to get through that.
Yep.
Buy gold, store food, get close to your community. You're up here for hours every day preaching the truth. and you do break it down to the banks, and your listeners also do. I mean, my husband plays your show for all the other merchant mariners on the boat every day.
Oh, really?
And oh yes, and and you're gentle, but yet able to wake them up just by calling out things such as the Spanish Main,
Greetings,
such as 9/11.
greetings to the crews
Stuff
on the ships at sea. I mean, no idea.
Oh, they love that. Oh, they really love that. Okay, so I just wanted to say, yes, you are doing it for hours every single day. You're bringing it home to the bank, and as soon as you do get back to the mainland, let us all know when we can fund that. And that's all I want to say, is that you are doing it. And I understand his frustration, so I am not belittling him or anything. I do understand where he is coming from.
Right.
But you are already doing it. So is Claire, amidst having to move and whatever else.
Yes.
And so that's okay. And I'll just take your response off air, and I love you very much. And I can't wait to come see you speak and see Miss Claire when y'all come to the States.
Oh, thank you.
All right. Well, we're not going to be too far away from you in Texas. I mean, we're aiming for Indiana here. We're aiming to actually make the leap about the 1st of September. Between now and then, we're going to have a whole bunch of yard sales. And if we can't sell it, we're going to donate it. If we can't donate it, we're going to put it in the trash. But like I said, it's been quite a revelation as we get ready for this, just how much absolute junk we have accumulated around us over the last several years.
Yes.
Okay, we're going to go back to the photos. We're going to start with Jeff in Michigan. Jeff, I'm probably going to have to take you through this next commercial break. What's on your mind?
Yeah, hey, in reality, what stops an invasion of a sovereign nation?
Well, defensive structures and a good military, neither of which we have down there at the southern border.
Well, if we were to invoke what has been historically the response to that, what would we do?
Well, right now, Congress has shirked their responsibility for declaring war and allowed presidents to start military actions. So Trump ought to be sending a lot of our troops down there to that border and start building fences, even if they're only temporary. But I'm getting rather tired of the fact that Trump talks a lot, but nothing is getting done.
With that being said, that's not a solution. What would be the solution when we're being, these people come across our border and they just get on all these free programs, and then American citizens that are working, paying their bills and stuff, have to start paying the bills of these other people.
That's exactly the problem.
What should we do? We should be enslaved or what?
Yeah, that's exactly the problem, and it's got to stop. And anyway, listen, Jeff, got to let you go. Got to take another break for commercials. Got another caller on the line, and we'll be right back. And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. We have another caller on the line, and that is Glenn in Philadelphia. Aloha, Glenn. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi, Mike. You sound really fried tonight. You sound really exhausted and burnt. But I have a bumper music suggestion for you.
Yes.
How about "Don't It Always Seem to Go That You Don't Know What You've Got Till It's Gone"? Hey, Paradise, put up a parking lot.
Yeah, Joni Mitchell.
Because, yeah, and because we're precious close. I was listening to John talk about the financial situation and the paying for the servers and all that kind of thing, and how he's usually a couple months behind. He tries not to get more than 3 months behind and all that, and they work with him. And that sort of staggered me a bit, because the numbers aren't that outlandishly daunting that he was talking about. Now, I imagine there are several thousand people listening to the network at the moment, and, I'm just going to suggest that maybe we go with small amounts and large numbers.
Yes.
And if there are several thousand people listening right now, I had listened to RBN a lot. I call on the shows a lot. I used to pay monthly for the archive thing when that was active. I don't send in donations very regularly, but having heard what John said, I hate to say this, whether it's politics or the network or whatever, any group, we tend not to act until we perceive some higher degree of desperation. So I'm just going to say that I am going to go ahead. I'm not a wealthy guy. I'm an American saddled with debt. I service debt and keep the wolf from the door and all that kind of thing. But if I can afford to stop at the convenience store, after work and buy a $2 cappuccino or fountain drink or whatever, I can afford $10 a month. So I'm going to set up a recurring $10 a month. And I can hear people might think, ooh, blast to the big time spenders. That's not the point. Idea is I'm finally going to sit my butt down and do that at the computer. And I would like to suggest, ask, perhaps even challenge, if we can get a thousand other people, a thousand of the people listening to send $10 a month. That's $10K in John's pocket, or we can even send you $5 or $10 a month. I think $10,000 a month would go a long way to help people create some of these products.
Absolutely.
Yeah, great idea, Glenn. Thank you.
So yeah, let's start the $10 club. Get everybody to just that. And I think a lot of it is just to actually sit down at the computer, go to republicbroadcasting.org and find a thing and set it up, because it wouldn't be that painful. A lot of times you probably won't even notice that $10 just kind of goes in with the rest of your monthly nut, and you'll be doing something to really facilitate a very important voice in the media. So that's it.
Well, thank you very much for the endorsement. Thank you very much for the kind words and the kind suggestion. And it does take a certain finite amount to keep all of this stuff running there at RBN and out here on the island of Oahu. And yeah, every little tiny bit helps. There's no such thing as too small of a donation. All right, getting on back to the news here. What is your next story there, Claire?
Well, the next story is apparently FBI failed to brief in August 2016 then candidate Trump about investigations into his staff. So, mid-August 2016, counterintelligence briefing for the Trump campaign did not specifically warn officials about Russian outreach to the Trump team, nor did it warn that two campaign aides, Mike Flynn and George Papadopoulos, were already under FBI investigation. Fox
that
News
basically tells us that the whole investigation was a setup to go after Trump.
Yeah.
Because, if you're concerned that Russia is trying to infiltrate the campaign of a presidential candidate, the first thing that you should do is go on over to that candidate and say, be careful, we think the Russians are trying to infiltrate you.
Yeah, but it never happened.
No, they wanted it to happen.
Yeah, and the new details about the so-called defensive briefing have emerged from congressional letters, text messages between FBI agent Peter Strzok and lawyer Lisa Page, and sources familiar with the matter. Such briefings are designed to warn the candidate and his team about national security threats. Never happened.
Nope.
Never happened.
No, they wanted it to happen.
Yeah. And there is some testimony. There was a defensive briefing of candidate Trump on 17 August 2016. Texas Republican John Ratcliffe, a member of the House Judiciary Committee, said Thursday on Fox News at America's Newsroom. And he goes on to state, and I can tell you what he wasn't told. He wasn't warned about a Russian investigation that Peter Strzok had opened 18 days earlier. Absolutely flipping unbelievable, Michael.
Yep.
Completely flipping unbelievable. Okay. And another thing that I felt we needed, especially with what is going on with Julian Assange, apparently journalist killings, arrests, and assaults are climbing worldwide as authoritarianism spreads. This is from Activist Post. Myanmar, we sort of remember what that was. We had
Yes.
we had ethnic people trying to flee into Myanmar who lived there. And I never thought when this whole thing started, I would have to say, watch out, here comes the Buddhists, because these Myanmar people are Islamic. And at least they have gone ahead and released 2 Reuters journalists imprisoned for more than 500 days, which is a little good news in what otherwise has been a dismal period for media freedom. The 2019 Press Freedom Index by Reporters Without Borders shows how hatred of journalism has degenerated into violence and created an intense climate of fear worldwide. According to the Paris-based nonprofit, 12 reporters have been killed so far this year, and 172 are in jail in the last decade. According to the group, 702 journalists have been killed, including 63 last year.
Well, it's really bad down in Israel, where they've determined that the IDF is intentionally targeting the press, to make them go away. And the press are easily identified. Obviously, they're carrying cameras. They're wearing jackets that have press both on the front and the back, but they are being intentionally targeted.
That to me is completely outrageous and unreasonable.
Yes.
Oh, and we're going to have our Bilderberger meeting.
Actually, it started today.
Okay. And apparently, it's some of the 130 most wealthy and influential people will be jetting into Montreux, Switzerland, starting tomorrow.
Starting this morning.
Okay, it looks benign. The website of the Bilderberg Group says it's just an annual forum for informal discussions designed to further dialogue between Europe and the United States. It's a forum for informal discussions about major issues.
It's
There's
just
no
a coffee clatch.
Yeah. And I'm looking at this, and what they are doing, there is something called the Chatham House Rules from London.
Yes.
And apparently, what's going to happen here is this handful of people are going to decide who lives or who dies, where the next wars are going to be fought, against whom, and project this huge, ugly, diaphanous cloud over the existence of all of humankind. If they were really concerned about bettering the lives of their citizens, why in heaven's name would the Chatham House rules be invoked? The short answer is they would not be invoked. If these leaders cared enough about the welfare of the people over whom they rule, this is about money, profit, and more money. Mike,
yes.
Your observations?
Absolutely. This is where the world's elite get together, and they make their little deals and agreements. We're going to go into here, you're going to go into there, we'll stay out of your way if you go over there, and you stay out of our way, so forth and so on.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Okay.
Going on to some other developments in terms of computers, etc. Apparently soon hand recognition will catch criminals as researchers build a database to record variations in biometrics. Apparently university researchers at Lancaster University in the UK are busy working on new technology they claim will one day make it possible for law enforcement to identify potential criminals simply by looking at their hands. The professor who was the head of this, Dame Sue Black, reportedly heading up the project, said that the human hand is very much like a fingerprint because you've got unique patterns of veins, skin creases, scars, pigmentation, and in some cases, tattoos. Because of this, she claims it is possible to identify a person solely by these attributes, even if you were to never see the person's face. Now, since manual observations of unique hand signatures have already been successfully done in the legal system to identify child abusers, Professor Black and her colleagues believe that forging a more technologically advanced method of identification that combines the use of hard and soft biometrics could be the future of criminal justice.
Okay.
Well, I think that's going to change the talk to the hand.
Yes, I think so.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And apparently the hand will be talking back. But the bigger question I have here, Mike, what can we do as a country, as a nation, to prevent kids from even thinking about doing something wrong or illegal?
Well, part of the problem right now is in our country, most families have two working parents.
Yeah.
And so the kids are being raised by corporate media, by, rock stars. That's where they're getting their values.
Yeah.
And we need to go back to the model where there was one working parent and one parent that stayed at home to be with the kids, to give them moral guidance.
Yeah.
To basically say, these are our values. And, we lost that.
Yeah.
Okay. We have another caller on the line. This is Dustin in New Jersey. Aloha, Dustin. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Sorry I had to call again, Mike, but first of all, I want to say Hillary Clinton's hands are dirtiest at the most.
Oh, okay.
They got more. Yeah, Hillary Clinton's hands got to be the most dirtiest, wrinklest, creepiest hands in the world, because she's got her hands in a lot of stuff. The Clintons and the Bushes.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Okay?
We know. Yeah.
Hey, Mike. I don't know. I love Star Trek, Mike. I don't like the new Discovery show. I love the originals. I love Up to Enterprise.
Yes.
I'm a big fan of Star Trek. I love Doctor Who. But did you hear about Doctor Who?
In what way?
The newest producer. The other producer left. He's going to bring. I know you're sitting down because I'm watching it.
Okay.
LGBTQ diversity now to Doctor Who. So I'm done with Doctor Who now.
Yeah, actually,
the show,
they've lost a big part of their audience with the female doctor.
But not Mike. No, the female doctor was actually brought in with the producer left. There's a new producer.
Yeah.
That's going to bringing in social justice issues now. So why can't we have shows that have great stories and just great
shows that are fun? Well, not to defend Doctor Who, because I think this LGBTQ stuff has gone too far, but the original Star Trek TV series, Gene Roddenberry, they had really good writers, of which Roddenberry was one. They actually took on some of the social issues of the day. For example, TV's first interracial kiss happened in an episode of Star Trek. They had shows that tackled issues of racism, and they were able to get away with it because they were out in space. So it's not unusual for science fiction shows to tackle social issues. I just happen to think this particular social issue is just a little bit silly.
Oh yeah, Mike, you're right. The one with the with Uhura, with Kirk kissing her, with that Roman episode.
Yes.
That was a great episode. I didn't have no problem with that. But now it seems like every TV show is really shoving it in your face. Do this or else. You got to be. You know what I mean? It's just like it's in your face, but you got to follow this routine, or you're the outcast.
Yeah.
The regular person.
Yeah.
And Mike, also, that Call of Duty video game, what they're pushing with the new Activision, they're pushing where they work with moderate rebels in the game. Did you hear about that?
No, I don't play computer games, and I don't play,
Yeah, they're pushing white helmets are in the game. They're going to be in the game, and basically the YPG, which is a terrorist group that Turkey's fighting, is part of the game that you're fighting with the moderate rebels. And there's a storyline where the Russians killed the girl's family in a drone attack. So it's bigger than what we think what's going on. In the Call of Duty Activision games, there's an element of the Pentagon somewhere in there.
Oh,
there's
I'm sure of
gotta
it.
be because, but doesn't that creep you out? Where it's like they're doing this, they're implementing this whole, Assad gas his own people, the Russian or the bad guys in video games, in movies, and
it's
this
called
or that.
propaganda. It's called propaganda, and I'm surprised they're not putting more of that in the music we hear on the radios. But it's definitely in TV shows. It's definitely in the movies, and it's definitely in the computer games. The computer games are great vehicles for propaganda, and not only that, they're good vehicles for the recruiters, because I would imagine, starting with America's Army, that the high-scoring players are basically reported back to Army recruiters, so they can come knock on the door and say, "Hey, you'd be really good at this in the real life."
And the parents have
Mike, are
no
you gonna?
say? I'm sorry. Go ahead, Dustin.
No, Mike, are you and Claire going to be on RBN? Like when you move, if you move, because I can't live without you guys. I mean, like you got. Claire, there's nothing else like. No, Claire, there's nothing else like you guys.
Thank you
I
so
don't
much.
watch Alex Jones. You guys are heroes because there's nothing else that is getting anything out.
Now, we may be off the air for a few days during the move. I'm going to try and set up a laptop so I can even do the show while I'm traveling. But yes, once we're settled on in, we'll still be doing whatreallyhappened.com. We'll still be doing RBN. Dustin, we got to let you go. We got to take a break for commercials. We'll be right back. Aloha America, welcome back to our show. Last segment on this Pauhana Friday, and we have an update regarding the Virginia Beach shooting. There are at least 11 people dead, 6 hospitalized. The shooter is among the dead, and still waiting for more details as to what went down. This took place in a municipal building, not a school. That doesn't make it any the less tragic.
No.
But, we're going to try and find out what went down, whether it was personal animosity, if the guy was on prescription psychiatric medication. Anyway, Claire, you have another story for us.
Yes, I do. Kind of interesting. It's talking about fighting malaria with fungi. Biologists are engineering a fungus to be deadlier to mosquitoes. And there are lots of ways you try to keep mosquitoes away: insecticide, netting, etc., etc., etc. Beds, sterile and generally modified insects have been tried. Now scientists are adding a genetically engineered toxic fungus to the arsenal of weapons to wipe out the mosquitoes that can carry malaria. And by far the 2 most effective strategies that have been done and have worked have been insecticide-laced bed nets, and they have, to some degree, lowered the number of infections and deaths. The global malaria burden, however, has failed to decline in the last couple of years. In 2017, 219 million people, boy, that's a huge number.
That is a large number of people.
219 million people were infected with malaria, and an estimated 435,000 died. This, to me, Mike, is both creepy and scary all at the same time, because how will we know that this slate wiper is not going to start wiping humans off the planet?
Well, obviously that's got to be a concern with this fungus, that it be very species specific to the mosquitoes.
Yep.
I get very nervous when they're talking about all this genetic engineering. And the fact of the matter is the genetically modified mosquitoes didn't work out. And so I'm not entirely confident this is going to work. It looks like just somebody getting some funding, and playing around, and they come up with something, and maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. But yeah, certain funguses can invade the human body, and there are some slate wipers out there. They're not funguses, but they're the filoviruses.
Yes.
Okay, which apparently now we have in Texas. So let's go on down here. Let's see.
Oh, this was interesting.
Yeah.
NSA, to Baltimore. Don't blame us. And this comes from deepstateblog.com. republic.org.
Basically, the fingers are pointing back and forth on that ransomware that's paralyzed the city. And NSA is saying, look, it's been out there for 2 years. You could have prepared for it. Anyway, there's the music. It's time for us to get on out of here. Please stay tuned for John Stedmiller. I'm sure he's got lots of interesting things to share with you. Please share what you learn here with everybody that you know. Use email, paper mail, face-to-face. And once again, please donate to Republic Broadcasting. They really, really need your help right now. So we'll be back on Monday. Aloha, America. Have a good weekend.